The conference room door slams shut. Colonel Davis sits at the head of the table, his jaw tight. "Remove that badge," he orders, pointing at the worn military ID clipped to the janitor's uniform. "You don't belong here." The old man's hands tremble slightly as they rest on the cleaning cart. 60 years old, gray hair, stooped shoulders. He looks like someone's grandfather who took a wrong turn. But beneath that faded uniform is a secret that will shatter everything Davis thinks he knows about authority, about service, about the quiet men who swept floors while saving nations. Before we continue, if stories of quiet dignity and unsung heroes resonate with you, tell me where you're watching from. This story of James Harper reminds us that true legends don't announce themselves. They simply serve. I read every comment. The Pentagon's Sub-Level 3 conference room sits in perpetual fluorescent twilight. Gray walls absorb sound like secrets absorb truth. A massive oak table dominates the center, surrounded by leather chairs that have held generals and admirals for 4 decades. 3 digital clocks on the wall display Eastern, Zulu, and Pacific time zones. The air conditioning hums with mechanical precision, recycling air that smells faintly of coffee and old documents. Colonel Richard Davis stands at the head of the table, reviewing classified briefing materials. At 38 years old, he wears his Army dress uniform, with parade ground precision. Bronze Star, 2 meritorious service medals, expert infantry badge gleaming under harsh light. His career trajectory points straight up. West Point Honors Graduate, Ranger School Distinguished Honor Graduate, 2 combat deployments commanding infantry companies. His record sparkles with efficiency ratings that read like love letters from his chain of command. But today his jaw tightens with frustration. The morning briefing ran 2 hours over schedule. Budget cuts threaten his next assignment. A senator's aide questioned his operational recommendations. The administrative burden of field-grade rank grates against his preference for clear missions and decisive action. That's when the janitor walks in. The old man pushes a cleaning cart through the door marked Authorized Personnel Only, SCI Facility. He wears a dark blue maintenance uniform, the fabric worn thin at the elbows. Gray hair combed neatly but thinning at the crown. His face carries deep lines carved by decades of sun and wind. Both hands show slight tremor as they grip the cart handle. Maybe 60 years old, maybe 65. Stooped shoulders. Cautious movements of someone whose body protests every step. Clipped to his uniform pocket is a Department of Defense identification badge. The photo matches his weathered features, but something seems off about it. The security hologram shimmers with patterns Davis doesn't immediately recognize. Davis stops reviewing his documents, his eyes narrow. "Excuse me. This is a classified briefing space. How did you get access?" The janitor looks up with pale gray eyes that seem to absorb everything and reveal nothing. "I clean this room every Tuesday afternoon, sir. Have for 6 years now." "Your badge." Davis extends his hand with command authority. Not a request, an order. The old man unclips the ID and hands it over without protest. His fingers tremble slightly during the exchange. Davis examines the card with practiced scrutiny. Department of Defense civilian employee. The photo matches. Name reads James Harper. Date of birth, March 15, 1964. 60 years old exactly. But the access authorization section shows a code that makes Davis pause. SAP Omega 7, Special Access Program. But the classification level indicator shows something unusual. A red stripe he's seen maybe twice in his entire career. His irritation overrides his curiosity. All he registers is an elderly janitor in a space that requires security clearance for classified discussions. A potential compromise. A breach of protocol that could endanger operational security. "Mr. Harper, this conference room is secured for classified briefings. You need advance authorization from the J2 security office before entering during briefing windows." "I have my schedule, sir. Every Tuesday, 1400 hours. Same time for 6 years. Davis's neck flushes red. He's a field-grade officer. He's commanded combat operations. He's briefed general officers on tactical situations where lives hung on his assessments. And this elderly civilian is contradicting him, challenging his authority in his own briefing space. Your schedule is irrelevant if it conflicts with operational security requirements. You need to leave immediately and check with security before cleaning any SCI-designated spaces. The janitor reaches into his cart and pulls out a laminated work order. He holds it with both hands to steady the tremor. Building Services Order, 2018-447. Tuesday Cleaning Detail, Sub-Level 3, Rooms 301 through 315, signed by Deputy Facilities Director. Davis snatches the work order, examines it. The signature is authentic. The date shows 6 years ago. But that doesn't address the fundamental problem. This man is interrupting his preparation time, creating a security concern, demonstrating the kind of bureaucratic inefficiency that makes military operations harder than enemy action ever could. Mr. Harper, I don't care what your work order says. I'm ordering you to leave this space immediately and coordinate through proper security channels. The old man stands quietly. His hands still tremble. His posture shows the stoop of age, but his eyes hold something that doesn't quite match the frail body. Something that whispers of depths Davis can't see. Young man, I'm just trying to do my job. Same job I've done every Tuesday for 6 years without incident. Young man. The words hit Davis like a slap. He's a colonel. He's earned that eagle through sweat and sacrifice, through sleepless nights and impossible decisions, through leading soldiers into combat and bringing them home. And this janitor, this civilian with trembling hands and a cleaning cart, calls him young man like he's a lieutenant fresh from basic training. Davis's voice rises, carries across the conference room with parade ground volume. I am giving you a direct order as the senior military officer in this facility. Leave now, or I will call security and have you escorted out. The janitor looks at him for a long moment. Those pale gray eyes seem to measure something, calculate something, make some kind of assessment Davis can't decipher. I remember when colonels had more manners than rank, the old man says quietly. Then he turns his cart around with slow, careful movements and pushes it toward the door. Davis feels vindication surge through him. Authority reasserted, protocol maintained, security preserved. This is what leadership requires. Clear boundaries, firm decisions, unwavering standards that don't bend for convenience or hurt feelings. The janitor pauses at the door. Doesn't turn around, just speaks over his shoulder in that same quiet voice. They used to call me Ghost. Then he's gone. The door closes with a soft click that somehow sounds louder than a slam. Davis stands alone in the conference room, stares at the closed door. The word echoes in his mind. Ghost. Something about it bothers him, nags at him, a memory trying to surface, a reference he should recognize, but his irritation pushes it down. He has briefings to prepare, real work to accomplish. No time to waste decoding cryptic comments from elderly janitors who can't follow basic security protocols. He turns back to his classified documents, tries to refocus, but that word keeps circling. Ghost. Why does it sound familiar? 3 hours pass in tense preparation. Davis reviews intelligence assessments, coordinates with J2 staff, refines his briefing materials, but concentration comes harder than usual. That encounter with the janitor left something unfinished, some thread dangling that his military mind wants to resolve and file away. At 1700 hours, he walks to the security office on sub-level 2. The space smells of strong coffee and electronic equipment. Monitors display feeds from hundreds of cameras throughout the Pentagon. A young specialist sits at the main desk, reviewing access logs on dual screens. Specialist, I need information on a civilian employee. James Harper. Works building maintenance. The specialist's fingers fly across the keyboard. Harper James, 6-year employee, maintenance level 3 clearance, clean record, no security incidents. He pauses, squints at something on screen. Sir, his file has restricted access. I can see basic info, but detailed records require what? 06 authorization or higher, sir, which you have. But there's a flag here. Says inquiries about this employee must be logged and reported to Pentagon Force Protection Agency. Davis feels irritation spike again. That's standard for anyone with SAP access. Pull up his work history. The specialist navigates through screens. Hired 2018, assigned sub-level maintenance, prior employment shows. He stops, leans closer to the monitor. That's odd. What? Prior employment section is redacted, completely blacked out. I've never seen that before for a maintenance worker. Something cold touches Davis's spine. What about his service record? Most DoD civilians are veterans. More keystrokes. The specialist's expression shifts. Sir, it shows he has a DD-214 on file, but I can't access it. Says requires SCI clearance and special authorization. A DD-214 for a janitor requires SCI clearance? Yes, sir. That doesn't make sense unless... The specialist trails off. Unless what? Unless his military service is still classified. Sir, I've seen this once before. A contractor who worked black operations. His entire service record was sealed because acknowledging what he did would compromise ongoing programs. Davis stares at the screen, at the redactions, at the security flags, at the pieces that don't fit together in any normal pattern. What's his clearance level actually show? Read me the exact code. SAP Omega 7. Sir, Special Access Program Omega Category Level 7. The room seems to tilt slightly. Davis has held secret clearance his entire career. He's been read into top secret operations. He's even been briefed on compartmented programs during his last deployment. But Omega Category is something else entirely. That's not just classified. That's the classification level for operations that officially don't exist, for programs that require presidential authorization just to acknowledge. Specialist, why would a janitor have Omega-level clearance? I don't know, sir. Maybe it's legacy clearance from previous employment that was never downgraded? Or maybe... He hesitates. Maybe what? Maybe he's not really a janitor, sir. The words hang in the air like smoke from a grenade. Davis thinks back to that encounter. The trembling hands, the stooped posture, the quiet voice, the way the old man carried himself with something beneath the physical frailty, the way he looked at Davis with those eyes that had seen things, done things. Ghost, Davis whispers. The specialist looks up. Sir? He said they used to call him Ghost. Does that mean anything to you? The specialist's face goes pale, actually pale, color draining like someone pulled a plug. His hands stop moving on the keyboard. Sir, you need to talk to Colonel Morrison, right now. Don't wait, don't finish your shift. Go find him immediately. Who's Colonel Morrison? Special Operations Command Liaison. He's been in J3 all day. Find him now, sir. Tell him you met someone who said his call sign was Ghost. He'll know what to do. The fear in the young specialist's voice makes Davis's combat instincts flare. This isn't bureaucratic concern. This is genuine alarm, the kind that comes from knowing something dangerous is in play. Davis walks quickly to the J3 corridor, finds Colonel Morrison's temporary office. The door is open. Morrison sits reviewing documents, his Special Forces tab and Ranger tab visible above his unit patch. He's maybe 50, gray at the temples, face weathered by decades of hard service. Davis knocks on the doorframe. Colonel Morrison, I need a moment. Morrison looks up. Make it quick. I'm due at the SCIF in 10 minutes. Sir, I had an encounter today with a DoD civilian, maintenance worker. He mentioned a call sign, Ghost. The security specialist said you'd want to know. Morrison's expression doesn't change, but something happens behind his eyes, something instant and alarming. He stands up so fast his chair rolls backward into the wall. Describe him, now, every detail. Davis blinks at the sudden intensity. 60 years old, gray hair, slight build, trembling hands, wore maintenance uniform, had ID badge showing SAP Omega clearance that seemed... Where did you see him? Sub-level 3 conference room, about 3 hours ago. Morrison grabs his phone, dials with sharp movements. This is Morrison. I need immediate location on James Harper, DoD civilian maintenance. Yes, that Harper. Find him now. I'll hold. He covers the phone, stares at Davis with eyes that have seen combat. What exactly did you say to him? I asked him to leave a classified briefing space. He was... You ordered him out? Yes, sir. Protocol required. Jesus Christ. Morrison's voice drops to almost a whisper. You ordered Ghost to leave? You gave him orders? The phone crackles. Morrison listens. His jaw tightens. He's where? The garage? On his way out? Stop him. Politely. Tell him Colonel Morrison requests a moment of his time. Don't order. Request. Be respectful. I'm on my way. He hangs up. Looks at Davis. Come with me. You need to understand what you just did. They walk fast through corridors. Morrison talks in clipped sentences. James Harper, retired Chief Warrant Officer 5. Delta Force, 1984 to 2008. 24 years in Special Operations. You know what Delta does? Counter-terrorism, hostage rescue, direct action. That's the public mission. The real mission is operations that never happened in places we were never present, doing things that would cause international incidents if acknowledged. Harper spent 24 years doing that. He was one of the first operators selected when Delta formed. He ran missions in Beirut, Panama, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and places we still can't name. They reach an elevator. Morrison jabs the button. His call sign was Ghost. Know why? Davis shakes his head. Because he specialized in impossible insertions, getting into places everyone said couldn't be penetrated. He'd appear inside hostile facilities, secure compounds, fortified positions, places with multiple security layers, guards, sensors, dogs, and he'd get in anyway, ghost through walls. The enemy called him that first. Our side adopted it because it fit perfectly. The elevator descends. Morrison continues. After retirement, he could have taken any number of high-paying contractor jobs, training, security consulting. He chose janitorial work at the Pentagon because it lets him stay connected to the mission without the spotlight. He still holds Omega clearance because he knows things about classified operations that will remain sensitive for another 50 years. Things he can never talk about. Missions that officially never happened. The elevator opens. They walk into the parking garage. A small group stands near a maintenance vehicle. James Harper leans against the bumper, his cleaning supplies loaded in the back. 2 security personnel stand at a respectful distance. Not threatening. Not blocking. Just waiting. Morrison approaches with visible respect. Chief Harper, I apologize for the intrusion. Could we speak for a moment? The old man looks at him with those pale gray eyes. Colonel Morrison. Been a while. How's that knee? The one you tweaked in Kandahar? Morrison smiles slightly. Still reminds me when rain's coming. Chief, this is Colonel Davis. He had an encounter with you earlier in a conference room. Harper's eyes shift to Davis. No anger, no resentment. Just that same measuring assessment. The young colonel who wanted me gone, Harper says quietly. I remember. Morrison turns to Davis. The chief has 16 documented rescues of isolated personnel under fire. He's been wounded 7 times, 3 silver stars, 5 bronze stars with V device, 2 Purple Hearts, and a Distinguished Service Cross that was classified for 18 years because the operation it was awarded for is still too sensitive to acknowledge publicly. Davis feels the garage floor become unstable beneath his feet. Chief Harper works here because he wants to, Morrison continues. He cleans conference rooms because he chooses to serve this way. His pension alone is enough to live comfortably. But service isn't about comfort. It's about continuing the mission in whatever form that takes, even if it means pushing a cleaning cart and being dismissed by officers who don't know better. Harper raises a hand. Colonel Morrison, that's enough. The young colonel was doing his job. Security matters. I understand that better than most. He saw something that didn't fit his understanding of normal and he acted. That's exactly what he should do. You deserved respect, Morrison says firmly. Respect is earned through actions, not demanded through revelation of past actions. I haven't earned anything from this young officer. We'd never met before today. He made a reasonable assessment based on available information. Harper turns to Davis. You were protecting operational security. That's your duty. You performed it. I have no complaint and no hard feelings. The humility in those words somehow makes Davis feel worse. This legend, this warrior who did things that remain classified decades later, stands here with trembling hands and worn shoes, excusing the arrogance of an officer who hasn't earned the right to shine his boots. "Sir, I apologize," Davis manages. His voice sounds rough. "I didn't know. I should have investigated before assuming. I should have asked questions instead of issuing orders." "You didn't know because I don't advertise," Harper replies. "That's intentional. The work I did required anonymity. Still does. Being recognized defeats the purpose." Morrison checks his watch. "Chief, can I buy you dinner? There's a lot I'd like to discuss about the upcoming reunion." "Appreciate it, Colonel. But I need to get home. Early morning tomorrow." Harper climbs into his vehicle with careful movements. His hands still tremble as they grip the steering wheel. Before driving away, he looks at Davis one more time. "Young man, you've got potential, good instincts, but remember that rank is temporary and character is permanent. The most dangerous assumption is that you know everything you need to know. The most valuable skill is recognizing what you don't know and asking questions instead of making judgments." The vehicle pulls away, disappears up the garage ramp. Morrison and Davis stand in silence. "He called me young man," Davis says quietly. "To him, you are. To anyone who lived through what he lived through, we all are." Morrison turns. "That encounter you had, write it down. Remember every detail, because you just learned something they don't teach at West Point or Ranger School. You learned that legends don't wear their medals. Sometimes they wear janitor uniforms and push cleaning carts. And the real test of an officer isn't how he treats his superiors. It's how he treats people he assumes have nothing to teach him." Davis can't sleep that night. He lies in his quarters at Fort Myer, staring at the ceiling, replaying the encounter. The way Harper stood, the way he spoke, the calm acceptance of disrespect he absolutely didn't deserve. At 600, Davis sits at his desk with coffee growing cold. He opens his laptop, searches for information. Finding details about classified operations is nearly impossible, but sometimes fragments leak through official histories. He types, "Delta Force 1980s Operations Beirut." Results flood the screen. Most are sanitized after-action summaries, declassified reports with entire paragraphs blacked out. But patterns emerge. Operation Eagle Claw, the failed Iran hostage rescue, Delta's first major operation. 8 Americans dead. The unit nearly disbanded after. But they persisted, learned, evolved. Then smaller operations, quieter operations, missions mentioned in footnotes of official histories. A hostage rescue in Lebanon, 1984. No names given, just acknowledgement that special operations personnel successfully extracted American civilians under hostile conditions. Davis finds a declassified Delta Force history document from 2010. Scrolls through pages of redacted text. Most names are blacked out for security. But he finds one partially visible entry. A Chief Warrant Officer 4 led a 4-man team into a fortified compound in Beirut to extract 2 captured CIA personnel. Despite intelligence indicating 40-plus hostile guards and extensive security measures, the team penetrated defenses undetected, located the hostages, and exfiltrated without casualties. The operation demonstrated capabilities that would define Delta's approach to denied area operations for the next 2 decades. The redactions can't completely hide the pattern. A warrant officer, Harper's rank, the timeline matches, the specialty matches. Davis searches further, finds references to operations in Panama, Somalia, the First Gulf War. Every reference includes redactions. Every mission summary carefully avoids naming specific operators, but the pattern persists. A warrant officer, a specialist in infiltration, someone who appeared where enemies thought security was absolute. He finds a memoir by a retired Delta commander. A single paragraph mentions an operator nicknamed for his ability to breach seemingly impenetrable defenses. "We had a CWO who could get into anywhere. I watched him bypass security systems that cost millions to install. He'd study a target for hours, then find the weakness no one else saw. Guards would be looking right at him and somehow not register his presence. It was uncanny, almost supernatural. We started calling him Ghost because that's what he was. A ghost through walls, through security, through awareness itself. Davis leans back, feels the weight of what he'd done yesterday. He'd ordered a legend to leave, treated him like an inconvenience, judged him based on appearance and age and assumptions that were completely wrong. His phone rings. Morrison's name on the display. "Colonel Davis, you have time this morning for a conversation?" "Yes, sir." "My office, GO 800, and bring an open mind." At exactly OR 800, Davis sits across from Morrison. Between them on the desk is a thin file folder, classified markings visible on the edge. "I pulled some strings," Morrison says. "Got you temporary access to a partially declassified version of Chief Harper's service record. This is highly irregular. I'm doing it because I think you learned something valuable yesterday and you deserve to understand the full context." He opens the folder, slides several pages across the desk. Black bars redact most of the text, but fragments remain, enough to tell a story. Service dates, 1984, 2008, 24 years. Deployments, multiple. Every major conflict and dozens of operations that have no public acknowledgement. Awards, the list runs 2 full pages. Silver stars, bronze stars, Purple Hearts. But near the end, one line stands out. Distinguished Service Cross, for extraordinary heroism during combat operations in redacted. CW05. Harper led a rescue mission to extract redacted personnel from a fortified enemy compound. Despite sustaining multiple gunshot wounds and facing overwhelming enemy forces, he successfully extracted all personnel and ensured their safe evacuation while remaining behind to provide cover fire. His actions directly saved redacted lives and prevented redacted from falling into enemy hands. Morrison points to the citation. That operation happened in 2004, classified for 18 years, partially declassified in 2022. The full details remain sealed, but I talked to someone who was there. Want to know what really happened? Davis nods. Harper's team was extracting CIA personnel from a warlord's compound in Afghanistan. Intel said 6 guards. They hit 30. 3 of Harper's 4 team members went down in the initial contact. Harper was shot twice. 1 round shattered his collarbone. Another hit his thigh. He killed 8 enemies himself, got the CIA personnel and his wounded team to the extraction point, then stayed behind to hold off pursuit. Alone. With a broken collarbone and leg wound. For 40 minutes. Morrison's voice is steady, but his eyes show emotion. When the rescue bird came back for him, he'd killed another 12 enemies. He'd run out of ammunition for his primary weapon. He'd switched to his sidearm, then to a captured AK, then to grenades. When they found him, he was using a combat knife. Still fighting, still conscious, still refusing to let the enemy advance toward where his team had evacuated. Davis feels something cold settle in his stomach. The medic said Harper's first words when they pulled him onto the helicopter were, "Did everyone make it?" Not concern for his wounds, not pain, just making sure his people were safe. That's who you ordered out of a conference room yesterday. Morrison closes the folder. The chief works maintenance because after 24 years of violence, he wanted simplicity. He wanted to serve without killing. He wanted to contribute without command. He chose the most humble job he could find because he'd seen enough glory to last several lifetimes. He doesn't need recognition. He's already proven everything possible to prove. How many people know who he really is? Davis asks. In this building, maybe 20. He doesn't socialize, doesn't attend reunions, doesn't wear unit shirts or special license plates. He shows up, does his job with quiet excellence, and goes home. The only reason anyone knows is because sometimes people like me recognize him from the old days, and we pass the word to people who need to understand that legends walk among us. Morrison stands. You asked yesterday why a janitor has Omega clearance. Now you know. Because James Harper personally participated in operations that remain classified at the highest levels. Operations that, if acknowledged, would damage national security, endanger foreign assets, and compromise ongoing programs. His knowledge is too sensitive to ever be fully declassified, so he carries that clearance until the day he dies, and even then, his records will remain sealed for decades. He walks Davis to the door. What you do with this information is up to you, but I'd suggest you think carefully about how you assess people moving forward, about how you define value and contribution and worthiness of respect. Because the next time you encounter someone who seems out of place, who doesn't fit your expectations, you might be standing in front of another legend you're too blind to recognize. That afternoon, Davis finds himself outside a small house in Arlington. Modest, well-maintained, American flag on a pole in the front yard. This is where James Harper lives. The address came from the personnel file Morrison showed him. Davis sits in his car for 10 minutes debating. This might be intrusive, unwelcome, but something drives him forward. Some need to properly apologize, to understand, to learn from someone who embodies service at a level Davis is still climbing toward. He walks to the door, knocks. Harper answers. He's wearing civilian clothes, khaki pants, a plain blue polo shirt, reading glasses hang from a cord around his neck. He looks at Davis with mild surprise but no hostility. "Colonel Davis, didn't expect to see you here." "Sir, I apologize for the intrusion. I wanted to speak with you properly, to apologize properly. If you have a few minutes." Harper considers, then steps aside. "Come in." The house is neat, simple furniture. Bookshelves line one wall filled with military history, tactical manuals, novels. A few photographs in frames show younger versions of Harper in uniform, standing with teammates. Their faces are turned slightly away from the camera, as if even in photographs they practiced operational security. "Coffee?" Harper asks. "That would be good, sir. Thank you." They sit in the small kitchen. Harper's hand still trembles slightly as he pours from a carafe that's clearly been waiting. He sets 2 mugs on the table, sits across from Davis with careful movements that suggest old injuries never quite healed right. "Sir, I owe you an apology that goes beyond what I said in the garage. I was wrong. Not just about protocol, but about respect. About recognizing that rank doesn't equal worth and appearance doesn't indicate capability. I'm sorry." Harper sips his coffee. "Apology accepted. But you're being too hard on yourself. You made an assessment based on incomplete information. That's human nature. Colonel Morrison told me about the compound, Afghanistan, 2004. Something flickers across Harper's weathered face. Not quite pain, not quite memory. Something between. That was a long time ago. You stayed behind alone, held off 30 enemies while wounded. The numbers in reports are always inflated. Makes for better citations." Harper's voice carries dry humor. Reality was messier and less heroic. Morrison said you asked if everyone made it before acknowledging your own wounds. Harper is quiet for a moment. When he speaks, his voice is softer. There's a promise you make when you're in that world. When you operate at that level. The promise is simple. No one gets left behind, ever. Dead or alive, wounded or captured, everyone comes home. That promise matters more than comfort, more than safety, more than individual survival. He looks out the window at his small backyard. I broke that promise once, early in my career, 1986, Beirut. We were extracting a kidnapped diplomat. Intel was wrong. Security was triple what we expected. My team leader made the call to abort. We got out. The diplomat didn't. Harper's hands tighten around the mug. He was held for another 3 years, tortured, broken. When he finally came home, he was a shell. I visited him once, tried to apologize. He told me he understood, that we'd made the tactical call, that sometimes missions fail. But you never forgave yourself, Davis says quietly. I never forgot that we left someone behind, that our promise was conditional, based on acceptable risk calculations and probability of success. And I decided right there that for the rest of my career, my promise wouldn't be conditional. I would never abort if there was even a chance of bringing someone home. I would never calculate acceptable losses. I would go back, always. The kitchen is silent except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator. The compound in 2004 wasn't heroism, Harper continues. It was keeping a promise I made in 1986. My team went down. CIA personnel were exposed. The promise said I'd bring everyone home, so I stayed. That's all it was, following through on a commitment made 2 decades earlier. Davis feels humility wash through him. This man, this legend, reduces extraordinary heroism to simple promise-keeping. No ego, no pride, just quiet acknowledgement of doing what he said he'd do. How many times did you go back? Davis asks. How many missions were you stayed behind or returned when others pulled out? Harper considers. Classified missions don't get counted publicly, but let's say I kept my promise every time it was tested. Some were close calls, some were ugly, some worked out better than they should have, but the promise was kept. He stands, walks to a drawer, pulls out a small wooden box, opens it. Inside are challenge coins, unit patches, and a few faded photographs. He selects one photo, hands it to Davis. The image shows 8 men in desert camouflage, faces young, eyes hard. They stand in front of a helicopter, weapons at low ready. Harper is in the center, maybe 35 years old, lean, fit, no tremor in his hands, but those same pale gray eyes. Mozambique, 1992, Harper says. Officially, we were never there. Unofficially, we extracted an embassy staff ahead of rebel forces. That's me. The 7 guys around me. All of them came home. He takes another photo from the box. 6 men this time. Desert background. Different war. Iraq, 1991. Behind enemy lines. Scouting Scud launchers. We got compromised. Took fire. 1 man wounded critically. We could have left him and gotten out clean. We didn't. Another photo. 4 men in snow camouflage. Location still classified. 2003. This one went wrong from the start. We lost half our insertion team to enemy contact. 2 killed, 2 wounded. Mission parameters said abort and extract. I went back for the bodies while the wounded were evacuated. Took me 16 hours alone in hostile territory. But everyone came home. Davis looks at each photograph, sees the pattern, sees the faces of men who trusted Harper's promise, who went into impossible situations knowing that if it went wrong, Harper would come back, no matter what. No calculation, no acceptable loss, just the promise. Sir, how did you know you'd succeed? How did you know you wouldn't die trying to keep that promise? Harper takes the photos back, returns them carefully to the box. I didn't know. Success wasn't guaranteed, but the attempt was. That's the difference most people don't understand. The promise isn't, I'll save you if the odds are good. The promise is, I'll come for you regardless of odds. That's what creates the bond. That's what makes men willing to walk into hell. Because they know that if hell swallows them, someone is coming back through the flames. He closes the box. You asked earlier why I work maintenance. Why I push a cleaning cart instead of consulting for defense contractors or teaching at war colleges. This is why. Because I made too many promises that cost too much. Carried too much weight. Saw too many faces of men I couldn't save despite trying. And I needed simplicity. Needed work where the mission is clear and finite and doesn't require leaving pieces of myself behind. Harper sits back down. His hands tremble as they rest on the table. Cleaning conference rooms doesn't require violence, doesn't require killing, doesn't require calculations about acceptable losses. I show up, I clean, I go home, and no one dies. No one gets left behind. No promises get broken. That's worth more to me than any consulting fee. The afternoon light slants through the kitchen window, falls across Harper's weathered face. Davis sees the cost of those promises in every line, every scar, every tremor. People see what they expect to see. A janitor in faded uniform, an old man with trembling hands. They miss the truth because they never learned to look past appearances. They never learned that true service demands silence, that the greatest acts of courage are the ones no one applauds. James Harper understands this, has lived it, and asks for nothing in return. Sir, thank you for sharing this with me, Davis says. for letting me understand what real leadership looks like." Harper waves a dismissive hand. "I just kept promises. That's not leadership. That's basic integrity. It's more than most achieve in a lifetime. Then most need to raise their standards." Harper's dry humor returns. "You're a good officer, Colonel Davis. You'll be a better one now that you've learned to question your assumptions. Remember that the next time you encounter someone who doesn't fit your expectations, they might be carrying burdens you can't imagine, fighting battles you can't see, honoring promises you'll never know about." Davis stands, extends his hand. Harper takes it. The grip is still firm despite the tremor. The strength is still there beneath the age. "Thank you, Chief Harper." Just Harper is fine. The rank is retired. Davis walks to his car, looks back at the small house, the modest yard, the quiet life of a man who changed the world in ways that will never be publicly acknowledged. And he understands that legends don't always wear their medals. Sometimes they just live quietly, keep their promises, and let their actions speak in silence that echoes louder than any parade. 2 weeks later, Davis receives an invitation. A ceremony at the Pentagon. Private. Invitation only. Limited attendance. The card provides minimal details, but the classification marking is clear. Secret, no foreign. He arrives at the designated conference room, sub-level 3, the same room where he first encountered Harper. But now it's arranged differently, chairs in rows facing a small podium. American flag on one side, Delta Force unit flag on the other. Perhaps 40 people in attendance, mix of active duty officers and retired veterans. Several wear suits, but their bearing screams military service. Morrison sits in the front row. He waves Davis over. "Glad you could make it." "What is this?" "Recognition ceremony. Happens every few years when classifications expire and operations can finally be acknowledged." Chief Harper is receiving formal presentation of decorations that were awarded decades ago but remained classified until recently. The room quiets. A colonel walks to the podium. Davis recognizes him from photos in military history books. Former Delta Force commander. Retired now, but still carrying the presence of someone who lived in violence and emerged intact. "Gentlemen, we're gathered to honor a warrior who exemplifies the silent professional. For 24 years, Chief Warrant Officer 5 James Harper served in Delta Force and other special mission units. His operations shaped modern special operations doctrine. His techniques are still taught. His legacy still influences how we operate in denied areas." The colonel pauses. Chief Harper's service was characterized by one unbreakable rule. No one gets left behind. That promise defined every operation he ran, every mission he accepted, every risk he took. Harper sits in the front row, civilian clothes, same trembling hands, same quiet presence. He looks uncomfortable with the attention. In 1986, Beirut. After a diplomatic extraction failed, Chief Harper organized an unauthorized rescue attempt. He penetrated a fortified compound alone, located the diplomat we'd left behind, and extracted him under fire. The diplomat died of injuries before reaching friendly lines. But Harper kept his promise. The body came home. The colonel's voice is steady, professional, but emotion leaks through. In 1991, Iraq, a reconnaissance mission was compromised. 2 operators killed. Command ordered immediate extraction of survivors. Chief Harper returned alone to retrieve the bodies. 16 hours alone in hostile territory. Both bodies recovered and returned to families. He continues through a list. Operations in Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq again. Each story follows the same pattern. Mission failure. Personnel lost or wounded. Harper going back. Always going back. In 2004, Afghanistan. This operation remained classified until 2022. Chief Harper led a team to extract CIA personnel from a warlord's compound. Intelligence estimated 6 hostile forces. They encountered 30. 3 of Harper's 4 teammates were wounded in initial contact. Harper was shot twice. Collarbone shattered. Femoral artery nicked. He got his team and the CIA personnel to the extraction point, then stayed behind to cover their withdrawal. The room is absolutely silent. Alone. Wounded. facing 30 enemy combatants. Chief Harper held that position for 40 minutes. He exhausted his primary weapon ammunition, switched to sidearm, then captured AK, then grenades, finally combat knife. When the rescue helicopter returned for him, he'd killed 22 enemy forces. He was still conscious, still fighting, still refusing to yield. The colonel looks at Harper. His first words to the rescue medic were, "Did everyone make it?" Not concern for his wounds, not pain. Just verification that he'd kept his promise. Harper sits motionless, stares at his hands. For that action, Chief Warrant Officer 5 James Harper was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, our nation's second highest honor. The citation remained classified for 18 years because the operation it documented was too sensitive to acknowledge. Today, we formally present that decoration. Harper stands slowly, walks to the podium with careful steps. The colonel pins the medal to his civilian jacket, shakes his hand, steps back and renders a salute that Harper returns with steady precision despite the tremor. Then another colonel approaches, carries a leather folder, opens it. Additionally, Chief Harper is being awarded 3 silver stars that were classified at time of action for operations in 1988, 1997, and 2001. Each decoration reflects extraordinary heroism in circumstances that officially never occurred in locations we were officially never present. 3 more medals, 3 more salutes. Finally, the colonel says, on behalf of the President of the United States and a grateful nation, we present Chief Warrant Officer 5 James Harper with the Purple Heart for wounds received in combat. This is his 8th Purple Heart. 7 were previously awarded. The 8th was classified because acknowledging the wound would acknowledge the operation. An 8th Purple Heart. Davis feels the weight of that number. 8 times wounded. 8 times Harper bled for missions most people will never know happened. The ceremony concludes. People line up to shake Harper's hand, to thank him, to acknowledge what he did. Harper accepts each with quiet grace. No pride, no satisfaction, just simple acknowledgement. Davis waits until the crowd thins. Approaches. Chief Harper, congratulations. Harper looks at him. Colonel Davis, glad you could attend. Thank you for letting me understand what service really means. You're learning. That's good. Keep questioning. Keep examining assumptions. The world needs officers who think instead of just react. Morrison joins them. Chief, there's a reception upstairs. Would you join us? Harper shakes his head. Appreciate it, but I need to get home. Early morning tomorrow. Floors to clean. He walks toward the door, stops, turns back. Colonel Davis, remember what I told you. The most dangerous assumption is that you know everything you need to know. The most valuable skill is recognizing what you don't know. You're going to command soldiers soon, maybe lead them into combat. When you do, remember that every private, every specialist, every person you encounter might be carrying history you can't see, might have wisdom you desperately need, might be the person who saves your life by sharing knowledge you didn't know existed. Then he's gone, disappearing into the corridor with the same quiet efficiency he used to ghost through enemy compounds. Morrison watches him leave. 24 years of that. 24 years of going back, of keeping impossible promises, of carrying weight most people can't imagine, and he works maintenance because he needs simplicity. Davis feels something fundamental shift inside him, a recalibration of how he measures worth, how he defines contribution, how he assesses the people around him. Sir, I'll never make that mistake again. I'll never assume someone's value based on their appearance or job title or age. Good. Because the next Chief Harper you meet might not be wearing a janitor uniform, might be wearing a private's rank, or a contractor badge, or civilian clothes, but they'll still be carrying knowledge and experience that could save lives if you're humble enough to recognize it and wise enough to listen. 3 months later, Davis deploys to the Middle East. His battalion is conducting counterterrorism operations in partnership with local forces. The mission is complex, the environment is hostile, the margin for error is microscopic. On his second week in country, Davis attends a briefing at the forward operating base. The room is packed with officers planning an operation against a high-value target. Intelligence indicates a compound in the mountains. Fortified, well defended. Extracting the target requires precision and speed. The battalion commander lays out the plan. Air assault insertion. Simultaneous breach from 3 sides. Overwhelming force to minimize resistance. Standard special operations playbook. A voice from the back interrupts. That won't work. Heads turn. The speaker is a contractor, maybe 50 years old, wearing 5'11" pants and a dusty polo shirt. No uniform, no rank, just a civilian consultant there to advise on local terrain. The battalion commander frowns. Excuse me? Your insertion plan assumes the LZ can support 4 helicopters. The terrain analysis is wrong. That valley has updrafts that make multi-bird insertion dangerous. You'd need to go single bird, which changes your timing and approach. Officers exchange glances. Several look annoyed. A civilian contractor questioning a battalion-level operation plan designed by experienced officers. Davis remembers Harper. Remembers the lesson. Questions assumptions, instead of defending them. Sir, may I ask a question? Davis addresses the contractor. What's your background with this terrain? The contractor shrugs. Spent 15 years working this region. Different job, different era, but the mountains don't change much. What job? Can't say specifically, but I know those valleys. I know how wind behaves, and I know your plan will get people killed if you don't adjust. The battalion commander looks ready to dismiss the comment. Davis speaks up. Sir, recommend we review the terrain analysis with his input. Better to adjust now than learn the hard way. The commander hesitates, looks at Davis, sees something in his expression that gives him pause. Fine, we'll review. But this better not be a waste of time. They spend 2 hours with the contractor. He walks them through the terrain with precision that suggests intimate familiarity. Points out landing zones they missed. Identifies approach routes that avoid enemy observation. Suggests timing based on local weather patterns that change by season. The plan is completely revised. Single bird insertion, different approach, adjusted timing. The operation launches 4 days later. Executes flawlessly. Target extracted with 0 casualties. Mission success. After the debrief, Davis finds the contractor. Thank you for speaking up. You saved lives. The man nods. Just sharing what I know. Glad it helped. Can I ask what your previous job was? The one that gave you this knowledge? The contractor smiles slightly. If I told you, I'd have to classify the conversation. Let's just say I spent time in these mountains doing things that officially never happened. The knowledge stuck. Davis understands. Another silent professional. Another person carrying classified history. Another Harper. Sir, I appreciate your expertise and your willingness to share it despite rank and protocol getting in the way. Rank is temporary. Knowledge is permanent. The trick is recognizing when someone has knowledge worth hearing regardless of what insignia they wear. The contractor walks away, disappears into the dust and activity of the forward operating base. Davis watches him go, thinks about Harper, about the lesson learned in that Pentagon conference room, about the fundamental truth that value doesn't announce itself with fanfare and medals. Sometimes it arrives in faded windbreakers, or contractor polo shirts, or faces weathered by time and service. That night, Davis writes a letter, addresses it to Harper at his Arlington home. Chief Harper, thank you for the lesson you taught me. Today, it saved lives. A contractor with classified background corrected our operation plan. Others wanted to dismiss him. I remembered your words about assumptions and humility. We listened. The mission succeeded because we were humble enough to recognize expertise regardless of rank. I'm learning that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about recognizing who has answers you need and being secure enough to ask. You taught me that. I'm passing it forward. Respectfully, COL Davis 2 weeks later. A response arrives. Single page, handwritten in slightly shaky script. Colonel Davis, glad the lesson stuck. Keep questioning. Keep learning. Keep recognizing that the person who saves your life might not look like a hero. They might look like a janitor, or a contractor, or a private fresh from basic. What matters is wisdom, not appearance. The world needs officers who think instead of just react. You're becoming one. Keep growing. Your friend, Harper Davis, folds the letter carefully, files it with his important papers, a reminder, a standard, a promise to never again assume someone's worth based on their job title or appearance or age. James Harper sits in his small backyard in Arlington. The afternoon sun warms his face. His hands rest on the arms of his chair, trembling slightly but comfortable. A book lies open on his lap. Military history. Something he's read a dozen times, but returns to anyway. The memory surfaces unbidden. That young colonel. The conference room. The momentary flash of anger when his soup was confiscated. Except it wasn't soup. It was coffee, and it wasn't confiscated. It was interrupted. Harper smiles slightly. Memory plays tricks after enough years, after enough operations, after enough wounds and medications and time. The details blur, but the lesson remains crystal clear. He thinks about all the young officers he's encountered over the decades, the ones who saw his current state and missed his past, the ones who judged based on appearance instead of investigating deeper. Most learned eventually. Some never did, but each encounter was an opportunity to teach, to share, to pass forward the wisdom earned through hard experience. The phone rings inside the house. Harper stands slowly, walks inside with careful steps, picks up the receiver. Harper. Chief, it's Morrison. How are you? Still vertical, still moving. Good enough. Listen, there's a young captain at Fort Bragg. Special Forces. Brilliant tactical mind, but arrogant as hell. Treats enlisted soldiers like they're invisible. I'm wondering if you might have time to speak with him. Harper chuckles. You want me to teach another lesson? If you're willing. This kid has potential, but he needs to understand what you understand. That rank doesn't equal wisdom. That everyone has something to teach if you're humble enough to learn. Set it up. I'll talk to him. Thank you, Chief. This matters. Harper hangs up, walks back outside, sits in his chair, picks up his book. The people who protect us most are often the ones we never see. The missions that save lives are the ones that never make the news. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one that changed everything. He's lived that truth for 40 years since retirement. 64 years since first putting on a uniform. A lifetime of promises kept, of people brought home, of lessons taught through example instead of lecture. The trembling in his hands is worse now, the pain from old wounds more persistent. But the promise remains, the commitment to pass forward what he learned, to teach young officers that humility is strength and assumptions are dangerous, and every person deserves respect regardless of their current position. Someone knocks on his gate. Harper looks up. A young woman in Army uniform stands there, lieutenant's rank, maybe 25 years old. She looks nervous. Mr. Harper? I'm Lieutenant Chen. Colonel Morrison said I should speak with you about leadership, if you have time. Harper gestures to a chair. Sit down, Lieutenant. Would you like some coffee? That would be wonderful, sir. Harper walks inside, makes coffee with hands that tremble but complete the task. Returns with 2 mugs. Sits across from the young lieutenant. Tell me about yourself, he says. What brought you here? And the teaching continues. The lessons pass forward. The promise kept in a different form but with the same commitment. Because service doesn't end with retirement. It just transforms, changes shape, continues in new ways. James Harper knows this truth in his bones, lives it every day, and will keep teaching it until the day his trembling hands finally rest. To everyone who shared where you're watching from, thank you for recognizing those who serve in silence. Subscribe for more stories of unsung American heroes who prove that true greatness needs no announcement. See you in the next one.